I would like to introduce our next speaker, which is Kate Knight. Kate is a former teacher, Young Learners Coordinator, and Young Learner Teacher Trainer, and beloved Director of Studies at IH Milan. She has now moved into teacher training full-time and is now based in the UK. And Kate will be talking to us today about developing our younger learners' literacy skills. So welcome, Kate. I'm going to turn off my video.
Okay, hello. Hi, thank you for that lovely introduction, Sarah. That's very kind of you. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you now. Okay, oops. Okay, went a little bit too far there. Okay, so as Sarah said, my name's Kate Knight. I've been working with International House Milan and San Donato for a long time, now in a slightly different capacity, but I'm glad to say I'm still working closely together with them now as a young learner trainer on their young learner training courses. So as Sarah said, today we're going to be looking at developing literacy skills. Now, I understand that the topic of today's conference is about empowering teachers in the digital age. So it might sound a little bit like I've gone off topic, but I do think we still need to be able to read and write before we can browse and type. So I thought it was important to focus on this topic, mainly because actually in the YL training courses that I do, in terms of feedback, I found that many teachers seem to be very interested in, but perhaps less confident in teaching literacy skills in the English classroom. So I'm hoping that the session today will, if not empower you, at least give you a few useful takeaways and practical ideas that you can use in the classroom. So okay, so hello everyone who said hello in the chat box. Really nice to see you all. I wish I could see you, but it's nice to know that you're there. Okay, so in whatever way that you teach English, so some of you will teach in a private language schools, other of you are teaching in primary schools in mainstream education. First of all, I'd like you to have a think about the skills that you teach in the primary English classroom. So here are 4 skills. I haven't mentioned the 5th skill of viewing there. If anyone has seen Kieran's presentation, you might think one is missing. But let's look at these 4 skills for now. And I'd like you to answer one of the questions below in the chat box. So first of all, with children aged 6 to 11, so primary age children, do you teach all 4 skills? Okay, so some yeses and some nos. Yes, no, yes. Okay, so a variety of answers here. And I think there will be, and it also depends, I suppose, on which level in the primary school you're teaching. Okay, so my second then question to you is, do you teach, when you are teaching the 4 skills, do you weight them equally? So do you spend the same amount of time teaching the 4 skills? Okay, so I try to do so. No, 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 yes. Okay, so again, some variety. So more speaking, some more speaking and listening. Okay, so thanks for your answers. I mean, I think to sort of summarize, I'd say obviously when we're teaching pre-literate learners, our focus will be on speaking and listening, as many of you said. And this maybe remains the same as well for children in primary school in the early years and those who are new to the language. However, as children start primary school and start to develop their literacy skills in their first language, we should start to think about how we can integrate these into our English lessons. However, as many of you brought up on the chat, I do want to underline that speaking and listening always come first, okay? So we need to hear a word before we can say it. We need to say a word before we can think about reading and writing it. Another reason for focusing on the speaking and listening first is obviously that then those strong speaking and pronunciation skills can then be used as a springboard from which we can develop good literacy skills. However, I do want to underline that these literary skills do need to be developed. So just because a child can read and write in Italian doesn't mean they can read and write in English. There's not an automatic transfer of these literacy skills from one language to another. So I imagine that most of you here probably teach children in predominantly monolingual classes. So all of your learners are Italian or have Italian as their first language, or they have Italian as their second language outside of their home language. Is that the case? So you're teaching mainly Italian learners? Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Okay, so oh good, thank goodness, I've got lots of yeses there. So I'm going to really focus in the next part of my presentation really looking at the two languages. Someone who's in Spain. Okay, but again, I think that the techniques that I'm showing you about comparing the language could work well whether you're teaching any other language, whether that be with Spanish students or other language students, but it really works best, it only works in monolingual classes. So if you have a monolingual class, whatever the native language is, then I think this should work. As I said before, while there's no sort of automatic transfer, when we do teach students in monolingual classes, we can use their first language as a base from which we can make comparisons and see differences. So let's compare now the two languages. I think just like in football, when it's England versus Italy, there's always going to be a clear winner. Italian, beautiful phonetic language. English clearly isn't. It's a massive challenge, even for native speakers, trying to understand the relationship or complete lack of relationship between sounds and spelling patterns. This is why, as I said before, it's especially important to focus on speaking and listening in the first stages. If our learners are confident in their pronunciation, they can use this as a basis from which they can develop their reading and their writing skills at word level. Okay, so in today's session, I'd like to talk you through a few practical ideas. As I said, hopefully there'll be some takeaways from this that you can use. I'll just give you a moment to read. And time allowing, perhaps we can do some questions at the end, or if anyone has any ideas to share, I'd really love to hear them. Okay, so let's start then with the comparison between Italian and English. Okay, so when we're teaching literacy skills, first of all, it's really important to understand exactly how and what your learners are learning in their L1 mainstream education. So if you're a primary school teacher you're teaching in the public or private sector, obviously you're probably teaching your learners Italian as well, so you will know all this. For those of you who work in a private language school, or perhaps you're a freelance teacher who goes in to teach English in primary schools, it's really, really important to know what stage your learners are at in their L1 literacy. First of all, as well, with English literacy skills, it's important to introduce students to the phoneme, so the sounds, before moving on to the graphemes, the written forms. Okay, so if we think about the alphabet now, so when I say the alphabet, I'm thinking about the phoneme, so the sounds of the alphabet, so a, b, k, as opposed to a, b, c, the sounds of the alphabet. We could start off with this and ask our learners to look at the phoneme sounds of the letters which are the same in English and Italian, and those that are different, and they can categorize them in that way. Okay, so if I give you an example, in both English and in Italian, these letters have the same phoneme sounds. Okay, so we say t, b, p, s, l in both languages. Okay, in the chat box, can you think of any other letters that have the same phoneme sounds in both languages? Okay, thank you. And we've got yep, that's the same. Good. V, okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay, good. Okay, lots. Okay, lots and lots. So here we can see there are lots of similarities. Okay, so these are the phoneme sounds for the letters that our Italian learners already know. Okay, so first of all, we can categorize these, and then we can start looking at the ones that are different. Okay, so for an example, first of all, the phoneme sound in English, we would introduce as a k, which might also be shown as a k. And other phoneme sounds for letters, which individual letters, which might also be different, are things like j, h, and w. Can you think of any other examples of letters that have different phoneme sounds in English and Italian? Okay. Okay. Yeah, L, so G perhaps. Okay, E, I think the letter E, I think, again, I mean, it's similar, I would say. We'd say as well in English and in Italian in terms of the sound there. I mean, I know that you can also in Italian have sort of open and closed and different kinds of vowel sounds, but I don't want to get too far into that. Yes, you've also said the letter I, which is a good one. Okay, so for example, in English it would be I. In Italian, it was a longer sound E, where those children might say they're from Italy instead of Italy. Yeah. So it's a similar sound, but it's quite a different length of the vowel. So here we can look at then similar ones, the same and difference. So this could be a good start, getting the alphabet and categorizing them into ones that sound the same and ones that sound different. Once you've done that, you can then focus maybe each lesson on a different letter sound and then brainstorm the words that they already know that start with that sound. So these phonemes are obviously represented by just one letter, but phonemes, so individual sounds, are sometimes represented by more than one letter. So let's have a look at these. Okay, so these letter combinations are also produce just one sound. Okay, so we've got ch, sh, and I. Okay. These can cause problems, particularly for Italian learners if they're trying to sound out all the individual letter sounds, because these obviously just make one sound. Can you think of any words that we teach at primary level that contain these letter combinations for phonemes? So for example, chair. Any others? Cheese. Yeah, good. With, church, shop, sing, sheep. Okay, so these are letter combinations that you'll find frequently. Okay, so these are letter combinations that make one sound. So this is something that can be highlighted. Again, you can look at these individually. You can put them on flashcards, you know, like you would with vocabulary, and practice them so they can recognize them. In addition to letter combinations that make one sound, we can also have letter combinations in which you hear all the sounds that could also be practiced. So these are a little bit different. So if you compare ch, sh, and I, which are one sound, compared to, say, st, bl, tw, thr, nch. These are blends, so the letters are together, but you can hear the individual sounds. Now, in terms of sounding them out when we're reading them, Italian learners might have less difficulty with these because they're sounding out all the individual letters. However, some of the sounds are obviously going to be more challenging for them. Which of these do you think might be more challenging for an Italian speaker? Okay, okay, some inches in there as well, but a resounding thr is obviously a difficult sound. Okay, so sounds that perhaps they don't have in their first language. So when we're introducing the written form of the new vocabulary, obviously when we're introducing the written form, when they are confident with how it sounds, when they're confident with how to produce it, and we're introducing the written form, we could think about highlighting these. As I said, using flashcards to learn them, practice them in the same way that we would teach vocabulary items. So once we've got all the individual letter sounds and the letter combination sounds, we can start putting them together to build up to reading at word level. Okay, so if we would start off in the classroom with phonetically spelt words, okay, you've got the nice simple ones like the consonant vowel consonant words like cat, so we can easily match them together, k, a, t. Okay, and then when we're putting words together that have phoneme sounds made up of letters, keep these together. Okay, so we don't want to spell it out s or p, because that's not helpful. Whereas if we identify that the phoneme here is sh, we can then put the words together more easily. So as we read them, we put them together, sh, or p, shop. We know that this is I, so we can put it together, l, I, t. Okay, we can do the same with the blends. So we've got thr, e, and b, e, nch, bench, to build those words together. A first start with this is really nice to try it with matching cards. Okay, so learners can put the words together. For example, l, I, t, on the matching cards, match the word together, and then they can match it to a picture so you can check for meaning. Okay. For younger learners, you might just want to concentrate on first letter sounds. So a nice activity here could be revising some vocabulary sets that you've previously taught in the lesson, say with flashcards. And then you can ask the learners to categorize the flashcards based on the first letter sounds. So putting all the s words together, putting all the h words together. Once they've done those classifications, you can ask them to do a free drawing. So a drawing of anything they like, but they have to include a minimum number of items on the cards that you have just practiced. After that, you can ask them to label their picture with the first letter sound of the word. So we've got s for sun, for house, example. Or if you've been doing blends with them, you might want to add those. So they could put cl for cloud or tr for tree here. In terms of practice, a really nice activity, which also gets your learners moving, is read, mime and guess. So you can prepare a set of cards with very simple commands on them: run, hop, jump, swim, sing, etc. And then you divide your class into teams. They take turns to take a card, read the command, act it out, and then the others have to guess. If you also wanted to include some writing practice here, first of all, you could ask the learners to write the commands on the cards, and then they could mix them up between them, and then they could play together. So once our learners have a vocabulary bank of known words, we can then start to look at similarities and differences. We can create tasks and activities which allow them to play with the language and analyse it to a certain degree. I mean, we obviously wouldn't expect our primary learners to analyse language in the same way as teens and adults are able. I mean, they're not cognitively able to do that at this stage. However, they are able to explore, and with support from their teacher, they can begin to work out patterns and rules in pronunciation and spelling. So a simple rule is the rule of magic E. Now, this image here has been taken from a cartoon called Alpha Blocks. If any of you don't know it, I recommend having a look. It's a CBeebies program on the BBC, but you can also find it on YouTube. The characters are all different letters, and they make their phoneme sounds. They get together to make words. It's lots of fun. This character here is called Magic E. Now, he is magic because he doesn't make any sound at all, but he can change the sound of the other letters. Now, as my name has the magic E in it, I often use that to introduce this idea. So learners know my name is Kate. Ask them, what's my name? My name is Kate. I write it on the board. Here it is. Okay, so this is the spelling, Kate. Can you hear the E? So is my name Kate? No. Okay, let's take away this. Is my name Kat? No. My name is Kate. So this is the magic E. The magic E turns the A into A. We can then look at some other examples. Magic E turns mat into mate, not into note, bit into bite. So we can look at the vowel sounds. A becomes A, O becomes O, I becomes I. Oh, I'm glad that someone would like to use that. That's great. So we can then practice this. We can highlight the rule. And then as practice, I give my learners a word list, and in pairs, ask them to work out, read and read out loud these words. Okay. We can also then start to categorise words by their sound and start to look at a variance in spelling patterns. And this also begins to help develop strategies for reading unknown words. We could make a big chart in the classroom. Let me show you an example. Here would be a chart where we're looking at categorising these diphthong sounds, which are ow, a, and o. Now, obviously, we're not going to use the phonemic chart with our primary learners, so we're using a base word that they're very familiar with. Now, I'm sure in whatever context we're teaching, we can all agree that our primary learners know colours, okay? So if we use colours as the base form, we can then highlight these sounds, ow, a, and o, for brown, grey, and yellow. Now, what we can do is at the end of each topic area, after we finish studying a certain topic, we can then pick out the vocabulary we've looked at and see if we can categorise it. So, for example, if we have studied animals, we might add owl, snake, and toad. And then perhaps the next topic, we look at body parts. So we add mouth, face, and nose. Then we might look at places around the town. Okay, so house, place, and road. This will draw our learners' attention to the fact that the same sound can have more than one spelling pattern. You can also draw their attention to other rules that you've looked at. So, for example, who can spot the magic E's in this list? So this is all very well, but what about words that don't follow the rules? As we know, English is full of these, and many of them are high frequency words. So if we want our learners to read, they need to be familiar with these high frequency words before they can even read any very simple texts. Okay, so what I mean by these high frequency words are things like this. Okay, even though the phoneme sound is I and meh, we obviously don't say I and meh, we say I and me. Okay, can you think of any other high frequency words that don't follow the rules? Okay, so we can think about then, for example, she, he, we, the, are, all, do, be, and also question words like who, what, and where. There's really no way around this, unfortunately, except for learning them by sight. So we need to think of fun ways that we can do this to make sure our learners get exposure to the spelling and the pronunciation of these words. So put them on flashcards, practice them, do all the games and activities that you would do with vocabulary with these high frequency words, stick them around the classroom, add them to spelling lists. A really fun way to practice these is to put them on bingo cards and play bingo with them. The learners can take turns to be the bingo caller, so they get used to reading them, scanning to reading them on the bingo card, reading them on the cards, listening to them, and then connecting the sounds with the written form. This way they get lots of reading, listening, and recognizing the spelling practice of these kind of tricky but very important words. So once our learners have some basic knowledge of letter sound relationships, as well as some key high frequency words, we can then start to encourage our learners to read. As we know from our first language, a love of reading massively improves children's literacy skills. So we should really try to encourage reading for pleasure in English as well. Here's a few tips when it comes to reading. I'm sure the publishers could let you know about any early readers that they have. A series that I would really recommend is from OUP. It's called Biff, Chip and Kipper books, and they have 3 different levels, and they're great first reading books. So as a side to books that they can read themselves, often our learners have favourite stories that we've read to them in the classroom, stories that we've read again and again and again, and they know them almost off by heart. We can then think about how we could exploit these to work on literacy skills. So, for example, analysing those well-known stories for spelling patterns. I particularly like rhyming stories, and then there's lots of activities you can do with this once the children are familiar with the story and the pronunciation. Does anyone know this book? Anyone that I've worked with will probably, because it's a favourite of mine. I don't care, said the bear, with his nose in the air. Okay, so that my learners would know the story off by heart, could repeat all their main rhyming chunks. And so then, knowing already the words, they look back again at the written form and they can categorise the rhyming words together. So we can look at, for example, care and bear and air and see that they sound the same, but the spellings are very different. So working out patterns, working out rules obviously helps to develop our learning to learn competencies, and it encourages children to use cognitive skills, memorising, classifying, categorising, hypothesising about things. And teaching children strategies like this helps them also to be more autonomous and to develop their English and their reading skills outside of the classroom, therefore providing them skills with that they need for lifelong language learning. And I think as a teacher of young learners, what could be more gratifying than that, really? So I know that we are probably just over time, so I'm going to leave you with a little spelling puzzle of my own. Can anyone work out the spelling rules in my name? And here's a lovely picture from a student of mine who tried very hard to write my name. Okay, thank you very much. I know we are over time, so Sarah, I'm not sure if we have time for any questions, but thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Kate. I'm going to, okay. Thank you very much for that, Kate.